Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world. Welcome back to the Fluid Fan Podcast. As always, I'm your host, Angela Ruggiero, a four-time Olympic medalist and the CEO and co-founder of Sports Innovation Lab. We are here to help define the fan of the future. We call it the Fluid Fan. It's our job here at Sports Innovation Lab to help educate, help talk, help push, help enable the industry to better understand fluid fans, their behaviors, and how technology is actually shaping the future of sports. Again, if you can understand how tech is influencing behaviors, hopefully we can all make better, smarter, more strategic business decisions. So that's what we've been doing for the past 5 years here at Sports Innovation Lab. Think of us as fan behavior experts. And we get to nerd out, talk about the future of sport with amazing guests. So I'm incredibly excited to have a dear friend on the show today, someone that happens to be also one of the highest ranking women in sports. Please welcome Renie Anderson, the Chief Revenue Officer and EVP of NFL Partnerships at the NFL. She's joining me on the show today to really help give us all a window into the NFL's revenue streams, what they're doing around innovating in the fan experience, the journey, and obviously giving us a window into one of the largest sports leagues in the world. She spent 15 years at NFL and, as I mentioned, is the league's first ever chief revenue officer. So big deal, running the show over at the NFL, and is just a great person. So you're going to hear some really interesting stories from Renie's background, but she'll also shed light into her role at the NFL, where she oversees the league's partnership divisions, including sponsorship, new business, consumer products, and media sales. So Renie manages a team, a big team actually at the NFL that drives new revenue through new relationships and activations of all of the league's current and new corporate sponsors and licensees. So managing a lot of people. She's all about team. You're going to hear that come out time and time again, but also has a tremendous roster of brand partners that she's established, and we'll touch on that in our interview. So without further ado, let's welcome Renie Anderson to today's edition of the Fluid Fan Podcast. Welcome to the Fluid Fan Podcast with one of my favorite people in the world, who you're going to get to know over the next few minutes. If you don't already know her, Renie Anderson, the Chief Revenue Officer and EVP of NFL Partnerships at the NFL. Renie, welcome to the Fluid Fan Podcast.
Thanks so much for having me, Angela. I'm psyched to be here today.
You're the best. Thank you for spending some time with us and sharing your wisdom with the industry. We talk about technology, innovation, the future fan. You're at the crux of all that at the NFL, and I've gotten to know you a little bit over the past year, in particular on our women's leadership board, and definitely you're one of my heroes. So let me just, for those that don't know, Renie, again, I'm gonna promote you a little bit, because you got to do that. You're crushing it.
That's nice. The team is crushing it. I just, I work with some awesome people.
All right. I know I'm a team player too. I played team sports. I love it. Just let me talk for you for a second.
Okay.
All right. So Hall of Fame honoree of Sports Business Journal's 40 Under 40, Ad Age 40 Under 40 winner, 2016 Wise Woman of the Year, Sports Business Journal Game Changer. You've been named one of the most powerful women in sports by Ad Week 2 years in a row. You've been at the NFL for 15 years, over 15 years really, and just have done a tremendous job there. I want to make sure, one, not only people, we start off with like, you're pretty awesome, but also like, how did you get to where you are today? Everyone is curious. I mean, the first ever for the league's Chief Revenue Officer. Walk us through kind of your background and what you're doing today at the
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm from Kentucky. I grew up on a farm, which you don't hear a lot when you talk about people in sports industry. I went to the University of Mississippi for college, so Ole Miss, and my dream at the time was to be a writer. So it was like 1997, Titanic came out. I'm like, here's what's going to happen. I'm going to move to LA. I'm going to write an amazing screenplay. I'm going to probably marry Leonardo DiCaprio and then win an Oscar. And what actually happened is I was a I went to a temp agency and I was a receptionist to pay rent. And I ended up meeting someone that knew David Baker, who at the time was the commissioner of the Arena Football League, and he was looking for an assistant. And so it's kind of perfect. I didn't know I wanted to work in sports. Like when we were younger, working in sports, I thought that was like being Aaron Andrews or Bob Costas or Jerry Maguire. Like I didn't even know these jobs existed. And so at the time, there were only like 8 employees on the entire staff. So although I was Dave's assistant, I got to do a lot of things and learn about the business of sport. And I moved around within that organization for a while before I came over to the NFL. To be a manager of new business. And then I've been here for a really long time, and now thankfully get to run the revenue side of the business and consumer products and sponsorship and partnerships and media sales, and have been here through some really exciting times. So it's kind of a weird path, but one I'm super thankful for.
Well, I love it. You earned your stripes. You came in and worked your way all the way up. Again, one of the most.
Yeah, I've done like every job. Some I'm not remotely qualified for. Like I remember early on, like I was doing contracts, like legal contracts, and I'm not a lawyer. Like I read John Grisham school, novels at Ole Miss, and he was actually a professor my freshman year. But I was not a lawyer. It's like I like NYPD Blue, but I'm not a lawyer. It's like or an investigator, but I've somewhat kind of done every level of job and understand it, which really, I think that training at Arena Football really helped me understand the different functions of business. Because if you can sell lemonade, you can sell orange juice. Like I can go do what I do really anywhere, right? Within the hospital or education, like so many industries, other than the sport itself, the business side of it is pretty much the same. And so it helped me really learn those functions, but also how important it is to work together within those functions. And that was one thing at the NFL when I first started, a lot of silos at the time and not a lot of cohesive working together. And so the internal sell at the NFL is much harder than the external sell. And so I think my kind of prep time at Arena Football really helped me when I came into the National Football League to really get to know different departments and the people that were running those departments and their goals, and understanding what was going to be, somewhat thoughtful for their goals, and then really helps me do my job to be successful here at the NFL.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You say you had to, sound like you got a great broad swath of experience prior to joining the NFL. Then when you were in there, as you said, the interpersonal dynamics, the team dynamics, the things that obviously make business go round. You must have pretty high IQ as well as EQ. I'm a big believer in EQ, and
I think the EQ I do pretty well in that space. I mean, look, anybody's going to probably do a lot better than me in like a math quiz. However, I do think that street smarts are sometimes where I excel. And so it's switching. And then part of that has been learning on how to politically work through different situations internally as well as externally. And so I don't necessarily know if I always get it right, but it's somewhere that I feel that I'm somewhat thoughtful on.
Yeah. And I'm sure that's a very important skill set, though, as you're driving new revenue streams, partnerships. I mean, you're dealing with partners across the NFL, and I want to get to some of the interesting partnerships that you've struck lately. But again, that's your primary role. Tell us, this is the first time the NFL's ever had a CRO position, just to be clear.
Yeah.
And why? What's the,
well, I mean, look, revenue, we've got a couple of buckets of revenue. We have our primary buckets, which are our television revenue, which is really a significant part of clearly how fans consume our sport and where we come to life. I'm really all the consumer facing revenue on the support side for sponsorships and consumer products, which also includes our gaming business, a lot of the innovation that we're doing now, which I'm sure we'll talk about with blockchain and NFTs. And then also our ad sales business for our NFL owned and operated. It's all connected, right? You can't have your television business if you don't have your partners and your advertisers who are actually spending on that. So it's somewhat cyclical. And so, and so it's something that we were able to take all of those businesses and somewhat create a partnership group and really be thoughtful about that. And then I work really closely with my colleagues in the broadcasting side to make sure that we're always combined, we're always connected, and also thinking about our broadcast partners, because they are important partners, and making sure we're elevating those relationships in the best way. Mm-hmm. And so I think part of it, it's funny, like, I'm not really a salesperson. People, it's like, well, you're chief revenue officer. I'm like, well, I don't really think of myself as a salesperson. Everybody has a different style. I don't think I'm very salesy, but I do think that thoughtful about bringing in the right key thought leaders within our organization to help our partners achieve their goals. And that's something that's transitioned so much over the last 15 years, where maybe 15 years ago, someone would buy our intellectual property, our IP rights, put that on a label and go sell it at retail. Now we have to be really thoughtful and innovative as we think about, the IP rights are valuable, but those working dollars have to work a lot harder for our partners, from our licensees to our sponsors, on how we're thinking about executing that socially, digitally, now virtually, because now virtual is another element. And so it's something that, working really well, again, with those people internally. I know I said it before, but it's super important, especially as the CRO here, to make sure that we're going to continue to grow those revenue points. But I can't do that without working closely with our events, our IT department, our football department, our legal department, our finance, our strategy, data analytics. It's all one cohesive package to move that ball forward.
Yeah, I hear you. Team. I would say life is a team sport, business is a team sport. If I love the way that you're like, my title is CRO, but I'm not selling it. I mean, that to me is what you want ultimately in a partner, someone that really treats it as such. So I'd love to dive into a couple of the recent partnerships that you've worked on. Maybe you can, one who we're familiar with at Visa. We've been talking a lot about their, cashless venues and, what they did with the Super Bowl recently with, and of course we know Lynn Bigger from the leadership board. Can you walk us through that partnership, the smart venue, as we call it at Sports Innovation Lab, where, can you take a technology and rather than just, ask for sponsorship, work really with the technology vendor to actually deliver more value to your customers, to your fans. So walk us through maybe that partnership and kind of maybe broadly the evolution of the venue and how that's a great platform for you as you strike new deals.
Absolutely. Visa's been a partner for a really long time, and they're a great example of the evolution of partnerships where, their customer base, you and I are bankers, but, they really think about the banks as their customers, people as their customers. There's so many different areas of the credit card business, and the whole idea of what is in your wallet and the share of wallet, making sure that we're really providing Visa with the best access to our consumers. And look, we have 187 million fans, and so that's a great landscape to work with. I think that we've always with Visa been thinking about technology, and they do really great work also with the Olympics as a great Olympic partner. And prior to COVID, we had been talking about doing cashless pay and really testing it. And I think that COVID really helped accelerate, unfortunately, but fortunately, and accelerate some of this technology. And Visa just dove in with Tampa, who was the host for the Super Bowl, to really integrate that technology. But they have to work really closely with other partners within that ecosystem. So Verizon, who's a 5G integration partner within that same stadium, in order for that execution to happen, and although they do the nuts and bolts of building in the technology, making sure that for the consumer that they can utilize that, having that 5G and that Wi-Fi technology, making sure it's at 110% was really pivotal and important. And so Visa really leaned in, worked really closely with Tampa Bay Buccaneers, as well as with Verizon, and then our host committee, to make sure that those seamless activations were available in stadium. Because now, especially with health and safety, thinking about that as a forefront tied to technology and experience is really important. And I don't know if when we were talking about cashless pay 3 years ago, health and safety was a bullet point underneath that, but it clearly is today. And so a lot of learnings there. And then they've spread their wings and they have a variety of partners within a lot of our stadiums, within the NFL. And what's a little bit different is, I don't own those stadiums. I own those relationships with our clubs. Every relationship with each club in their stadium is very different. Some teams own their stadiums. Others are just renting that space during that time. And so Visa has had some really intricate work done to create that. So you as a consumer can go in, know you have the ability either through your club app where you have a variety of options within the stadium to see what's happening, making sure that cashless pay option is there. We offered, there were areas where you could go get an ATM card if you only had cash and you didn't have a credit card to make sure that cashless payment was there. So you could put your cash within the ATM, they give you the card, you could utilize that card within the stadium as somewhat like a Visa gift card per se.
Yeah.
So really thoughtful thinking, and that continues to go. They've done a lot of work on a lot of technology from, look, if you think about like Clear's technology with the eye scan, Visa's working on some things there as well that will really, I think, elevate as we continue to go on further. And you're going to see that also as we go into different stadiums in our shop and Los Angeles, continue to push that innovation because fans are asking for it and fans are used to that technology. There are some learning curves for some different fans, but they're patient and they work on that with all of our key consumers.
Yeah, behavior is your point. Like behaviors are changing. Clear. I was in the airport this morning. I'm like, all right, I learned to use it there. I guess I know how to use it now in the venues.
Well, and I think we learned a lot over this past year and a half of behavior and how consumers are thinking because so much transitioned with this, ability to have integration with either companies or friends virtually through your phone, through apps. Yep. It's forced a lot of things forward, but now has become just the way that you do business. I've done a lot of holiday shopping and I haven't gotten off my couch or typed in a credit card because it's all right there, right? So it's like I've got it all there. It's so
it's too easy.
It's too easy. I can't open. And then it's like, oh, maybe I need that for myself. I
don't even go to the grocery store anymore.
Me either. It's the best. I'm not even any type of delivery service for groceries is the best invention of all time. So thank you, whoever invented that.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's really interesting because COVID obviously has accelerated a lot of and changed fans' behaviors. And on the Fluid Fan podcast, that's all we talk about is fan behavior and how technology is changing it. In this case, COVID changed fan behavior and technology is now enabling the behaviors we want. So you mentioned Verizon before. I'd love to just hit back on that. That's they, in some ways, when you struck your deal with them and laying the groundwork with 5G connectivity and upgrading all the networks across your stadiums, speak about that, because without that kind of platform, if you will, all the activations you're talking about with Clear or Visa or others really aren't possible. And if there are any nuggets, we had Extreme on last couple of weeks ago. Mm-hmm. Of like the insights that I'm sure you're getting back from Verizon and as a partner of like,
I think what we're seeing on the logistical piece of building that into stadiums, that is a huge lift to go in and change the inner workings of technology. And it's ahead of consumer adoption, right? So you need to go buy a 5G enabled phone in order to take advantage of these moments. And so that is kind of this next phase of that adoption for consumers. And look, we all saw that with televisions, right? Like you kind of buy a TV now, they all have that technology in there that's a smart TV, whereas maybe 5 years ago it took a while. So that 5G piece has that adoption. But for us on the business side, what's really important, having that connectivity really make sure that it's on point helps us as we think about what we're doing with next generation of stats with our players and the technology that's integrated there that AWS works on. Our sidelines, we think about our Microsoft Surface tablets, the connectivity from coach to coach on our the tech there that's from coach to coach and coach to player, because the technology has to work. And And that 5G really powers that infrastructure throughout the entire stadium. And then you get to the consumer experience, making sure that if they're if they're at a game and they're at, watching the New York Giants, they're physically there, but they also want to be able to follow other stats and things, that their connectivity has got to be on it. Your ticket now is on your phone. And so making sure that there's no lag time, there's no wait time. It is amazing. We've done a lot of different tests. In Los Angeles, we were doing some tests, and just the speed, sometimes you're thinking, you don't really think about it. It's like, okay, I'm just waiting for this to load. The speed, it's kind of like, oh, it's like, oh, this caught me off guard. This is so quick. Like I wasn't prepared. But that's what we should all be experiencing when we're trying to post our pictures on Instagram or connect to a moment. My husband and I took my daughters to our first Knicks game, and you could post a picture on Instagram and hashtag a moment, and they would put it up on the Jumbotron. So I'm trying to do that, but it was like, it's not connecting. Like, what is happening? And so we didn't hit the Jumbotron with our Instagram post, although we did get a Jumbotron shot of the girls, which was awesome. But it's just that because that experience of what we as consumers are used to having now is like, I want to be on there right now, immediately, as soon as possible.
But that's a really good point, because I always think about the consumer experience outside. And we just talked about groceries, we talked about shopping, we talked about connectivity, and I always think it's like a referee. A good referee you don't notice, a bad referee you notice. Like when connectivity's down, you're like, so
you ever notice people are like holding their phones up? It's like, does this help? I don't even know. I did it earlier today. I'm like, what's happening
in general, like sports? And you could talk about the NFL or sports in general, but recognizing that your consumer has higher expectations, higher demands. We're in the attention economy. We have to do more. We have to be more personalized. We have to just wake up that this consumer, this fan is different now. And how have you seen the industry, the sports industry specifically, think about, okay, if they walk in this stadium door and 5G works out there, but it doesn't work in here, I can click a button out there and I can't have that personalization.
Well, that goes to the whole point of like, it's easier to watch a game at home, right? But we want to make sure that experience in stadium is as good, if not better, than your at home experience. And that's where it's like, we have to make sure that we're really being really thoughtful about making it turnkey, making it from the moment you get out of your car at the stadium. That connectivity does have a play, from your ticket to your standing in line, to going through security, to buying your food and beverages, to getting your merchandise, to looking to see on your app if there's a line in the bathrooms. Maybe I go to a different area. Like, all of those things on the experience are, I think, what everyone in sports is thinking about. Because for me to take time on a Sunday to take my family to a game, it's like I'm taking a lot of time out of my day to do that. And that's a lot of there's a lot of other options that are out there. And so if it's going to be a real pain, and when I'm there and it's not turnkey, then I might consider, well, maybe I'll go do another event, or maybe I'll just turn this on at home. And so we're all fighting for that turnkey technology that really helps enhance that experience. So it's almost, to your point, you don't even think about it, because when it doesn't work, that's all you think about.
Yeah, totally.
Like when I am standing in a long line at security at the airport, I'm literally like, what is happening? But when I zip through, I don't think I tell anybody. But when it's a long line, I tell everybody. Like, that was the worst experience. That's why I have Clear, because it's amazing.
Yeah, I'm a fan of Clears as well. The lines or bathroom, anything, you're like,
That's why I this isn't a commercial for Clear, but I got an email and it was like, you should send 3 friends this opportunity to test Clear. And I thought to myself, if I have 3 friends that don't have Clear, then I don't want to be friends with them, because this is an amazing technology. Like, do you have any idea when you go to JFK and you see the line and then it's like, I'm going to go through Clear.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I'm as big of a fan, believe me. I
know, it's like this is randomly sponsored by Clear, and I didn't even mean it to be.
Karen, Karen, the CEO, so she's getting both our thumbs up for sure.
Yeah.
You'd mentioned before about sitting on your couch and enjoying the game. There's a hassle, but there's obviously a massive fan base, 187 million fans, you said?
Yes.
What's
Yes.
the exact?
That's at 187. Yeah.
There's a huge fan base. And then as all sports properties are thinking about being global, I always like to say from my Olympic experience, like 99.9% of fans will never actually attend an Olympics, but we all know the brand. We've all watched the brand. As you're responsible for media sales of the league's owned and operated media assets, including the NFL Network and NFL digital media, how have you seen that landscape shift? The obvious question is, from linear to digital and kind of the other ways that you're, these fluid fans are now consuming content. But what's your experience been like? One, pre-pandemic, and then obviously with sports having to be completely virtual. What have you seen post-pandemic?
Well, I think one thing we do see, which is great, and you see this in all sports, it's like multi-screen, right? You've got people that are, and we're thoughtful and thankful because we've got a great fantasy product. We've got the red zone product that is an insane product that is, just really hitting those high points. And so what we find is, our avid fans are watching the game, but they are watching it through multiple touch points. And we want to make sure through our mobile rights, through our red zone rights, our direct TV relationship and a variety of those areas that we want to be everywhere our fans are, but making sure that we're providing them with the best experience that we can in those moments. So if they're at home or if they're at a bar, obviously if they're at a game. And so that's something that we continue to make sure is cohesive. Part of it for us, when we think about our owned and operated advertisements, as well as our sponsors, there's a lot of connectivity there, because when we focus on key integration for, if it's the Pepsi Super Bowl halftime show, or frankly our Dapper Labs relationship recently, that when we announced that, we connect that, making sure that's integrated through our NFL owned and operated. So they're going to talk about that through unique content, but make it authentic, because we know that our fans that are watching NFL Network and that tune into NFL.com are avid NFL fans, and they want to hear about everything that's happening. So we try to use that also as just a resource to tell good news and to make sure that they know about key products that are coming out and how they can get them. And it all kind of ties together. I mean, I think the avid fans that we see from our fantasy space, and how that is going to be rolling into what we're now seeing with sports betting, and then continuation of that with, obviously connecting to daily fantasy, and then what's going to happen next in the NFT. And, one part of behavior, you mentioned the collectible space just exploded during COVID. So making sure that we're feeding that appetite for our fans that are really looking at collectibles, but thinking at it as a more innovative way. And how does that tie through all of our owned and operated and with our clubs? And it's exciting to do all of that. That's some things that we're thinking about today.
So Dapper Labs, I want to just touch on the digital collectible space, because it is taking off. We talk about it, trying to get ourselves smart on this market. It's just, like you said, it's, I'm always listening for, a few years ago it was VR and AR, and then it's betting, and, everyone's crypto and blockchain. We're in the NFT. There's waves. I don't think this is a wave. I think there's just a lot of uncertainty in the market. But you with your CRO hat have to figure out, what are the technologies I have to get smart on quickly, strike a partnership. You've already done, obviously amazing work, you said, with Dapper. That space right now, I don't know if you can lend our listeners any insights into how you think about kind of the digital collectible NFT.
Yeah, I think right now it's clearly early days. And so for us, when we think about the blockchain, there's probably a future that the blockchain is going to probably have some type of overarching like umbrella over all of our business at some point. What we're doing right now is really having it live right now in our consumer product space, where we're testing and learning with a few key partners on how our consumers engage within these spaces. And we did some research before, like, what do you think about the blockchain? Do you know about it? Do you trade with crypto? Because not every piece that we do on NFT has anything necessarily to do with crypto, although crypto does have the ability to power those blockchains. For us, what we really wanted to understand is the adoptiveness, understanding what is the value of the secondary market. So we've done a couple of things. One, we did a test this past week with Ticketmaster just to do a collectible ticket for 100 fans per team. And what was really interesting with just the first launch is that the open rates on emails, when you get an email, sometimes open rates can ebb and flow, were significantly high. And we had tons of transaction, as well as tons of transaction that went on the secondary market for trading.
Yeah.
And then as we think about Dapper, it's called NFL All Day is our Dapper product. It really is going to highlight, and the whole idea about the value of an NFT, it has to be scarce. You can't have 1,000 products up there. It's got to make sure that there's some scarcity to it to help elevate that value. So for us, it's going to be really interesting as we launch these products, and they've started to tease out a lot, and we're working with our players. An important relationship that we have is with our players and making sure that they're invested in this as well. And so what's unique about Dapper, it's an NFL, NFLPA, and Dapper relationship. It's all across the board, because you can't have an NFT. I mean, you could have a player NFT, a generic, but we all have to work together because people want to have that authentic NFT. So I think what will be interesting to see is what is the behavior of the consumer. What we do know from Dapper today, there's a crazy long waiting list for once it opens, there's a waiting list for people that are ready to go to get. And look, I think there's probably an audience of people that are collectors, maybe not NFL fans. So it's going to be really interesting for us to get to know who is this person. Are they an NFL fan? Do they also play fantasy? Are they a sports bettor? Are they a woman? Are they a male? Are they young? Are they old? And I think that's something that we're excited about. We have some assumptions. We think they might be, on the younger side and male. And that's what we see from a lot of other industries that are out there. But when you have so many fans, we don't want to under dilute the power of, maybe a female fan that is big in collecting digital.
It's a really good point, Renie. We're, as you know, hyper focused on behaviors and now with communities specifically, because as and you started to describe the young, the male, the woman, the demographics, really, we think if you can start to really just literally understand the community, the digital collectible community, if you will, that all they want is that next NFT launch. In some ways, it doesn't matter what they look like, where they're from, how old they are. If they're an avid consumer of these collectibles and you can identify them through that kind of community lens, and obviously you're going to you're not going to use the traditional metrics to target kind of some of these.
No. And what we've learned too, I mean, a place where a lot of digital collectibles have already existed is within video games and gaming. EA is a great partner there. I have 2 daughters and they play Roblox all the time. And Roblox is really investing in the metaverse and creating unique areas. And, I know that one of the items on my daughter's Christmas list is Robux. So it's like, okay, so she wants a Robux gift card so she can go buy a digital thing within Roblox, which I don't even understand, but whatever. So like, and she's 12. So I feel like she probably could explain NFTs or understand NFTs maybe more than me because of her experience that she has today. So as we think about that collaboration of this whole digital metaverse, that whole space that sounds like it's futuristic, but maybe in 20 years, it's like the beginning of the internet. Maybe that's what's happening. So we're really diving into all of that and trying to understand that, but being really open to how that's going to help enhance our fan base experience and then grow the fan base. And that's what's clearly so important as we think about some of these new innovations. It's great to grow our business. It's great to grow engagement, but if we're not growing the next generation of fans by integrating this, then we're kind of wasting our time. We want to make sure that is something that's really a prime focus.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah. I mean, that's the fluid fan. That's to a core. There are behavioral changes, but as your daughters have pointed, like they're already attuned to like, oh, I have a digital version of myself versus a physical version of myself, and I'm going to upgrade to have the cool glasses or the cool hair or and that's going to live in sports someday. So I love that you're obviously studying it. You're already doing amazing partnerships, and disruption to me is just understanding it so it doesn't take over, but it enhances and targets who you're going.
Well, I
after.
think the metaverse side of it, especially through video games, where you can see, I think Little Nas X did a concert recently through the metaverse. I mean, from entertainment to all of these things, it's like, here's the real world where we all are physically here. And then here's the metaverse where all the same things are happening.
Yep.
That's kind of wild.
Digital way. Yeah.
Yeah. Which is cool. I mean,
It's
if that's
already happening.
too, like,
I think.
and well, that's like in metaverse too, you can, if I have the ability to make myself not have like aches and pains from growing older in the metaverse, I will plan to do that with my
we're all gonna have these amazing bodies. We're gonna be able to sprint. We're gonna be able to compete. We're gonna, that's what it is. You're just it's a digital version of yourself. But yeah, this has been going on. We talked about a Travis Scott concert a few years ago. They had 10 million concurrent viewers. It was during a Super Bowl weekend. People are just hanging out watching.
As long as it doesn't change the world where we don't leave our homes, then everything's going to be great with it.
That's true. But if you can't get to the Super Bowl, but you can watch it in the future in the metaverse and hang out with the other people that are there.
Right. You can be the pregame, like, the tailgate concert. You can experience that in a way that's actually really cool. And like, again, like, and what else are those other areas of experience? I don't know, but
you're bringing, at the end of the day, what I love about where we're headed there is when I go to a sporting event, I love being with other people. I'm there probably more so for the people than the game sometimes.
Me too.
Love the community. And then what you're talking about now is this, it's just the digital version of communities where you're not, one-to-one watching a game, but you're like with other people doing things, watching the game. And that's exciting to me.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Cool. I want to ask a little bit about, because I'll highlight again on our women's leadership board. You're one of the highest ranking women in all of sports. And obviously not in any league, but the NFL, which is, pretty tough league in general. And just tell us about how the NFL specifically has worked to, really try to put more women in prominent positions. And coming from a sport that with hockey, where there are a lot more women playing hockey than there are women that play football, but not as many, relatively speaking. The NFL has really tried to put more women in league office, coaching staff, front office. It's been, something I've been obviously following closely. You talk about Roger Goodell and the league and kind of you took a lead in female fans. I know that said, look, we gotta target these women specifically, but you've taken it a step further and really tried to build out that whole ecosystem. And you're probably the best person that can speak to this because you're there. So tell us about kind of the ethos at the NFL around, women inclusion specifically.
I would say what's interesting about us is that we want to have the best people in the positions to lead, because we can't be complacent. And it's really important that we make sure that we've got, experts within that space. And so we cast a really wide net when we are looking to fill positions, grow positions, at least within the corporate headquarters. And we think about our leaders there. And women have filled significant roles at the NFL and still do significant roles on the business side as well as the football side, not because they're women, but because they are the best at their jobs. They are experts. And oftentimes we have employees that maybe don't have a sports background, but they came from a banking background. I mean, again, that's a little bit of like, if you can sell lemonade, you can sell orange juice. It's taking that segment of knowledge and integrating into our business. Now, we still have work to do. There's still a lot more on the business side, on that DE&I side that we need to do in our office, but we've had really great strides there. Donna Ponte is in our football department. Michelle McKenna is our CIO, which in tech space is not, women, not a lot of women within that technology space. Daisha Smith's our chief administrative officer, and she came from music and she's got a legal background. Janet Nova is our deputy counsel. I mean, so we've got a lot of really strong women that came from different backgrounds, but are leading in really great ways. You mentioned on the field, Sam Rappaport works in our DE&I group, and Sam is a force to be reckoned with because she has been laser focused on helping provide ways for women that play the game, women that coach the game, to have the ability to have a one-on-one conversation with a coach, have the ability to be considered for a job. Because I think oftentimes you're like, well, women don't play football. Well, yeah, they do. Women don't know the rules. Women can't coach football. Well, yeah, they do. There's a bit of that perception change. And Roger has supported all of it. He's got 2 daughters, and he's married to Jane Skinner, who's the producer of a podcast now that she and Sam have been working on, that is really focused on opening up those opportunities for women. And, the Super Bowl champions have a women coach. We've got, a lot of line positions. Our ownership and our head coaching staffs across the league are really open to, frankly, winning. And if it means that a coach on the sideline happens to be a woman and they can go to the Super Bowl and win with that woman as a coach, they would hire an entire staff of women to do that. So there's a bit of that reality of like, well, what's the goal? We want to help women, but we also want to win. And so if we have the ability to win either on the field or in the boardroom with the best people, because that's what the focus should be, right? Like, I don't think of myself as a female executive. I'm just an executive. It's like a bonus to everybody that I'm a woman. And so, but I think if it has that ability to make sure that we're focused on for women to be prepared, to be experts in their space, then getting the job is frankly the easy part at that, at that point.
Yeah. No, I love it. I love it. I too don't, you're being classified for whatever because just of your gender versus, no, you're the best for the job, but it takes leadership, true leadership to say, we're going to interview women or people of color, or we're going to think about our fan base in a different way. And the only way to do that is to hire people that look like our fan base. And just, again, the idea that diversity is a strength, and diversity of thought and can transform teams, can transform businesses. And but it's hard to change. Honestly, it's hard to change.
It is hard to change. And it's weird because the burden does sit on us. It's like the burden sits on us, but it does sit on the leaders to make sure that the organization is forward thinking and focused on that. Yeah. And there's like zero, like there should be zero resolve. It's not like, well, we're not going to look at any women for this position in football because it seems like we should have somebody that's played the game. Well, good news, guys. Some women have played the game, if that's the case. So I think that there's somewhat of that mindset. But I think, look, do we have to prove ourselves at times? Sometimes. I interviewed for this job before I worked at the NFL. I will not name the place. But the headhunter said to me, she's like, well, Renie, it might be really hard because the group you will work with, they're all men that went to Ivy League schools. And I was like, listen, I went to the Harvard of the South and I will run circles around these fools. I don't even know them, but it was sort of like, okay. I mean, I know there aren't a lot of women in the sales world. There are a lot within that sponsorship space and the management space. But I was kind of like, okay, well, I'm going to show you. And that's a little bit of maybe being underestimated.
I love it. I always takes me back to my hockey playing days, only girl on the ice. I'm like, all right, I'm going to throw some elbows in there. Watch out.
Well, I grew up, I had a bunch of, when I was young, my best friends were these 3 boys, Ben, Clay, and Chad. And we used to I would run faster than them and I would climb the tree faster than them. And if those 3 guys were here, I mean, they might beat me, but I would really in my mind think I'm probably faster than them. At least. But
what I love about that example right there, why, getting boys and girls and everyone the opportunity to play sports is you were learning about life in that very moment. You were like,
I just didn't know there was we just weren't, I wasn't being called out as being different. Like, oh, Renie can't climb the tree. I'm like, watch out, guys. I'm climbing over your head to get to the top. I'll pull you up.
Environment you're in now. You're like, watch this. I'm gonna,
Well, and that's where I think I work with a lot of really great men. I've also worked for some really great men that have helped open doors for me. And so I spoke to a college age girl yesterday and she was asking about mentors and women mentors. And I didn't have any. I did have some great women in the time to help when I came to the NFL that maybe opened some doors that I saw as an example, but there weren't tons. Yeah. And so I feel like I have a responsibility. You can't mentor everybody, but if I can coach up or if I can be an example or if I can, help open a door or make an introduction, I always want to really try to do that. Not that I didn't have it and I had that from a different way, but make sure that it's something that I'm really thoughtful for. Because I think the whole thing is we want to root for each other. I want to root for people. And what you've done with the Women's Leadership Board is so great because it gives a platform of women that we kind of we knew or we know, but now we're really rooting for each other, which is great. Because once it's like, power by numbers, you kind of you can't beat that. Like, so if a meteor were to hit the planet, I would be like, let's get the Sports Innovation Leadership Lab, the women's lab on this, because we'll destroy that before the Avengers. So it'll be great.
The Avengers. All right, I'm going to use that in our next meeting. Right?
Yeah.
The Avengers. A couple questions, Renie. Just we know Damani Leach. We've been working with him for a while. The league has done a great job of diversifying your fan base across the globe. And I know how does the NFL football, American football grow? You've got games in London, Mexico City now, and what I mentioned it before, but of your 187 million fans, I think 47% are women. Just generally speaks about, it seems like there really is a concentrated effort to build a more diverse global fan base that is inclusive, and obviously that's good for business because you're selling more games and product.
Yeah.
But what's the strategy? Because you're chief revenue officer, you have to obviously form the partnerships that connect to these broader fan bases. Talk us through that before we go, because I know it has been a strategy. If you're at 47% women, and just that statistic alone, people, I don't know. I always quote it.
Well, it's a good quote. Clearly here domestically, we're focused on maintaining that growth and making sure that we're focused on key new segments, youth, Hispanic, providing, because then you're getting women within that scope. So it's like, I don't want to be marketed to differently because I'm a woman per se, but making sure that we're really targeting those age groups in a really thoughtful way through our marketing, through our social efforts, through the way that our game comes to life. When we think about globally, you mentioned Damani Leach, Chris Halpin leads our international strategy. As we think about some of these key markets, from London to Mexico, and we're going back and really looking at Germany, understanding there's a huge engagement there and fandom there, continuing to grow that. We still have a whole lot of work to do there because our game translates very differently there. But what we've seen in London and the power of the NFL coming to life with that international fan helps us know that we need to continue to feed that appetite. And so we're working really closely with our clubs, understanding part of fandom is rooting for a team, not a league. And so how do we continue to build that fandom for teams in key countries across the globe? And so you're going to see the next couple of years, teams really leaning into key markets to establish that fandom in those key markets, because that's what's really important. When you see other sports, oftentimes they're fans of a player versus a team. And for us, our players are amazing. We have 1,800 of them. That's a lot. So we're really focused on the club. That player fandom will come into that club. But as you see, for us, when the NFL has a player that may retire, the fandom for that team doesn't drop. It maintains, if not grows, because it's about the fandom for the team and the love for the team. And the player love is absolutely there, but it drives that team. And so we're really focused on integrating how where we can get that avidity for key clubs across our 32 market within these different countries across the globe, and then really building it from there. It's kind of grounds up, right? Like the way it's I don't want to say it's mom and pop, but we're going versus going national down. We're starting in the market and going to build the community, build the groundswell, build that fan engagement, that passion, because you can't assume passion from national down. Someone might like it, like I'll tune into something, but I'm not going to go buy merch. I'm not going to go wait in line for a ticket or to meet a player.
That local connection and feel like you're a part of it.
Right. So it's really starting to be a part of key communities, and that's what's so strong about our 32 markets here in the States. Because I watched Thursday night football. It was Dallas at New Orleans, and they did a really great a spot about just the key fans in Dallas. And one of the guys said, he's like, this isn't just, I don't turn this on Sundays and Thursdays. This is every day of my life. Mm-hmm. And that's intense. That's like family, friends, football. There's like the 3 F's. And so how we can build that, I just made that up, by the way, but how we can build that internationally on the globe is something that we're really focused on, because that passion is what brings them back every time.
Yeah, that's why we love sports. All right, you're going to use that the triple F in your next campaign.
Oh.
All right, Renie, one question before we get to 4 questions with number 4.
Yes.
You see everything. You're obviously leading one of the biggest sports properties in the world. we talk a lot about technology and fan engagement. What's one piece of technology that or trend, if you will, that you think the whole industry should really make sure they maybe aren't buying today, but understanding?
Well, we touched on it before, and it's not NFTs per se, but it's the blockchain, because people get confused. They think blockchain means NFTs. They think blockchain means crypto. I think the blockchain and what that means for security of transactions, taking out the middleman, is really the future, because it's not something that it's going to just be a consumer product that the NFTs live on, which is where it is right now for us. But I do think there are areas, from content distribution, from storage, things that we do within the cloud, that the blockchain will have an area. And maybe it won't even be called blockchain in the future. Maybe it'll be your business technology unit or something like that. But I do think that that's something that, and it's hard to get smart on it because there's so many different pieces of the ecosystem that touch the blockchain. And there are so many, 7,000 cryptocurrencies that are out there. But I do think it's something that's going to evolve what we all do, and not just grow revenue, but how we have the ability to really engage with the consumer. And so it's intriguing. It's kind of scary and freaky, but at the same time, I think there's a lot of upside there, that trying to get as smart on it as possible. And I think, this time next year, in 5 years, it'd be funny. We should see the blockchain. Maybe we'll be doing this podcast on the blockchain. And someone will sell it as an NFT.
There'll be limited supply of this, this edition of the Fluid Fan podcast that we did 5 years ago is worth.
Yeah, right. And then it'll be trading in some Prince and some other European country will collect digital.
Yeah, we'll split the revenue. Don't worry.
Okay, it's good. That's
I'll make
good.
sure that I limit supply so we get a good rate for it.
Right. That's perfect.
All right. So Renie Anderson, Chief Revenue Officer, EVP of NFL Partnerships. Thank you so much for giving us your wisdom. Go listen to the blockchain or look it up if you don't know it. It's your parting piece of wisdom. I can't let you go though without. I like to ask industry leaders, since I think about innovation every day. I want to turn the floor back to you. What do you believe innovation means to you, Renie?
I think it just means how we move forward, because I think oftentimes, especially when you've been in a company for a long time, you ever notice when a new person comes and they have an idea and you're like, yeah, we've tried that. Yeah, we've done that. And I think that could be true, but you have to be open to doing things differently and maybe stop doing some things. There's a bit of where it's like, hey, we've been doing this one thing this way for 20 years. Why? Is there a better way to do it, or do we even need to do it at all? And so I think it's really, as we think about our resources, our human resources, where we want people to spend their time. And so innovating is really about moving forward. And if there are certain aspects of our business that keep us standing still because we're just, putting the top on the bottle cap, then maybe we don't need to do that. There's a better way to do that. And so it's more just having an open mind. And I know that's not really detailed or technology focused, but I think that's just more overarching on innovating. We learned a lot last year during COVID and how we had to reimagine a lot of things. And I think it just really pushed us forward to make sure that we're really being thoughtful that way.
I love it. Yeah. Yeah, it's true. When you have new people, be open, because, maybe this time they ask that same question, the answer might be different. So I love that openness in general. All right. Is there someone in the industry that you, or outside, that's super innovative, that you look up to, that you respect, that when they speak, you listen?
So I've gotten to know Stephanie McMahon through you on our women's leadership board. And I feel like Stephanie is one of the most innovative executives on the planet. And because she's got so many focuses, I also wonder when she sleeps, because from really helping, she does a lot to help women. She's evolving what they're doing at WWE. When I was a young girl, I used to watch what was WWF, but I used to watch it after church on Sundays, coming back with Roddy Piper. And I've always been a fan of it, but what is the evolution of this fan engagement that she's created? I mean, I think yesterday they just announced an NIL, a name, image, and likeness program before any other organization that is out there. And so I just feel like Stephanie is on just this edge of really pushing forward, being really innovative, also being really thoughtful as she does it, and making sure that she's one of the most encouraging humans in the industry as it relates to young women and coming up, and gives her time to so many people. So she's given it like 110% all the time. And I really admire everything she does.
Super smart. I mean, you hear her talk, and she's chief brand officer, so she's supposed to be extra, but I agree. Like we've gotten to hear her behind the scenes too. And like, damn, she really knows what's going on.
She knows what's going on. And she also she gives her time. And then you see on social media, she's like at an event, because she's also
like three girls.
And like, I don't know. Like, again, maybe there's an avatar of her somewhere, and she's cracked the metaverse, and we don't even know it yet. And when we see Stephanie, it's really Stephanie in the metaverse. Like, that could be, if anybody has done it, it's Stephanie McMahon for sure.
All right, Stephanie McMahon, hopefully you're listening. We love you. What's a piece of technology that you are obsessed with, think that we should all be looking at using, or you're following?
I think, look, we have really innovative partners. And so with Verizon and 5G, I already spoke about that before. I think there's so much more to come, and we've only scratched the surface. So I'm excited to think about that. One thing too, I think AWS and the cloud and the evolution of that during COVID, we would not have been able to do the draft the way we did virtually if it weren't for AWS. And so, and the cloud is not something you can touch or feel. It's like, in the cloud, and they do it a way they're spectacular in being innovative and thinking about how we're capturing our data, we're connecting to our consumer. Even as I think about the way we make the NFL schedule every year, it's within the AWS cloud. And so I think that's something as to continue to think about the evolution of storage and how we're thinking about our data, really looking at those companies like AWS and seeing what's going to be next, because I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. I love that answer, because sometimes, I hear a lot of shiny objects when I ask this question, but you're back to like basic infrastructure will change sports. And there's the cloud, and there's blockchain, and there's
I will say, when we did the NFL draft during COVID, so not this past year, but the year prior, and we did 100% virtual in the homes of the coaches, the players, the employees, Roger in his basement. That happened because of AWS and the connectivity board and our partners within NFL Network and ESPN. But like that was something that we were all kind of holding our breath for the entire first round, but it worked. And it worked because of their innovation and their thoughtfulness and their commitment to partnership. And that's a little bit of like, yes, they pay us for rights, but the partnership side of it is really strong. And they are always asking us how they can do more and help the game of football. And that's really why you want to have innovative partnerships, so we can continue to evolve the game, and then how consumers, bring that game, which is another part of it as well.
Yep. All right. AWS. Okay. Last question, Renie, you can't name the NFL.
Oh, but I was going to.
Because that's what this whole show is. Like, you guys are doing a phenomenal job. If you want to, you can tell me again why. Let's leave our listeners. Most innovative team, league, or federation.
Well, I'm going to still do the NFL. I have to. Only because we played every single game last year. We didn't miss a single game, and we ended our season on time. And that is not, and I'm not talking about innovation necessarily. I'm talking about the people. Because of our contact tracing, our COVID testing, our policies, our procedures, the humans that work in our office that didn't sleep, that happened. And so and all of our partners that participated, and look, all the other leagues are great, but I really can't give any type of endorsement that is any greater than the one that we have today. And so I know that's not what you
know
wanted.
What I'm feeling though? I'm feeling the love. You love your team.
I do. It's the best people in sports. We have other people are lovely too, but like we have a dedicated employee group that's like focused on it. And we have the men that play our game. What they do on the field is awesome, but what they do off the field is equally, if not, is more powerful and wonderful as well. So yeah, I love working here, and I'm really thankful for the opportunity. And I think that the best is yet to come.
Yeah. So well, you can feel it. If you have a C by your name, which with great power comes great responsibilities, they say. I think that was Spider-Man, but I use it a lot now. But I can feel it with you. You love working there. You're obviously doing some phenomenal things. So congratulations on all the partnerships. And as you start to think about where the future of sport and football and but that you close giving some love to your people and your team makes me again, that EQ, which I believe is such an important element of leadership, of innovation, is not just knowing what the smartest technology is. It's also how do you get it to work? How do you bring people along with you?
Human capital. It's really important. And we've got some good ones.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Renie. Appreciate all you do.
Yeah, you're welcome. And thank you, Angela, for all you do. You're awesome. So thank you.
Right. Huge thanks to my good friend, Renie Anderson, CRO and EVP of NFL Partnerships. You rock. If you're listening to this, I don't know. Sometimes guests listen. I hate listening to myself, just to be clear, when I give interviews. So Renie, if you're listening, thank you. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you sharing your insights and outlook on the industry, and opening up in terms of how you think about multiple things outside of just the NFL. You're definitely a rock star and innovating at the highest level in one of the largest sports leagues in the world. And you're an awesome woman crushing it. So I just, more power to you. Thank you for sharing with us and spending time with me today. Want to thank my producer, Jack Barlow, as well as my entire team at Sports Innovation Lab. We continue to grow, which I'm very proud of. And we're doing incredible things as a business, really helping our clients understand the fluid fan and using data and insights, fan intelligence to expose the opportunity. So thanks for my team and you, my listener. Thank you for being here. You have a million podcasts you could be listening to, but you chose ours today. So that makes me feel happy and want to say thank you for being a part of the show. This is actually our final show of 2021. It's been an incredible and hard year at the same time. We've done big things as a company, but we have a lot on the horizon for 2022. So stay tuned for that. I wish you all a wonderful holiday season. Happy holidays. Happy New Year. Take a little break. Have a little beverage. Spend some time with some family. Recharge those batteries. It's going to be a great 2022. I know we're still battling through COVID and trying to get back to what the new normal looks like. But no, you have me, you have us on this show, hopefully keeping you good company. And again, sending lots of love out to all my listeners. Thanks for being a part of this and see you in 2022.